Okay, and we're live. Hi everyone, and welcome to this next live stream of the introduction program of Study Association Stress. We are here for you in the brewery of Hops and Grains, a student-started company that originated in Module 7 of IEM. These guys decided they wanted to build on further on their project they did in that module, and now we are here and they will explain us more about their company. This is a lunch lecture. Lunch lectures are given kind of frequently, we have to see with Corona how it goes now, but by companies that want to explain you and tell you more about their company and what they can do for you, what your future could be there. For now, I would ask you to give him a big applause, but yeah, unfortunately he won't be able to hear you. But Jorik, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Welcome to this lunch lecture. Welcome. I hope all of you can hear me. I hope all of you can understand me. I hope the connection is clear, and I hope you are sitting there with your lunch. Normally the lunch would be provided by the company, but you know, Corona. So here we are. If you have any questions during any point in this program, don't feel afraid to ask. Going okay, guys? Yes. Yeah. Don't feel afraid to ask. Either put it in the chat or just ask questions after the lecture is done, because we will have a question round afterward. So, about me, my name is Jorik Bos. I'm 26 years old. In 2015, I started the Bachelor of Industrial Engineering and Management. In 2017, during the PDOB module, Module 7, I, along with my project group mates, founded Hops and Grains, and there I'm now the head brewer and spokesperson, of course. And in 2019, I finished my bachelor at Hops and Grains. I did a thesis project about the brewery, which I will tell you about later in the lecture. So together with my co-workers, we've been working on our company for exactly 3 years, actually. And you're looking at the result right now over my shoulder. There's the brewery. So welcome. So this lunch lecture, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk a bit about beer, and especially the beer market. Then we're also going to give you an introduction to Hops and Grains, using a pitch that we use more often during normal pitch events. Then we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, the general definition of entrepreneurship, but also entrepreneurship specifically at the university. We're going to talk about the founding and the growth of Hops and Grains after the founding, of course, and we're going to discuss the current state of Hops and Grains and also opportunities for students at Hops and Grains. So, beer. Let's start talking about beer. I heard that there's no beer for anyone in the kick-in this year. You're not allowed to drink beer with your do groups, and that's just intensely sad. Breaks my heart. Maybe a little bit of insight into the beer market might help to cheer you up. So, I bet that a lot of you actually like to drink beer, or that at least you'll learn how to drink beer somewhere in the near future. Just like I did in my first year when I turned 18, you guys. Most of you are probably already familiar with Pilsner in one of its many forms, like for example, Amstel and Heineken, Brandt, Hertog Jan, Jupiler. Am I forgetting anything? Grols, yes, of course, Grols, premium lager. These are huge breweries, of course, and their Pilsners have many things in common. For example, Pilsners are always light, they're always blonde. So, what are other beers then? Well, other beers are basically what we brew here. We brew craft beers. Anything that's basically in the ale category of beers. Now, luckily for beer lovers, there are many different types of beer other than Pilsner. And each variety is, of course, different in taste and texture and color and alcoholic content than all the others. the Netherlands is a great beer country because we have over 680 active breweries at this moment. Big and small, and all of them offer at least one different beer variety, of course. So there's thousands of beers for you to choose and to taste, and that's a lot of stuff to discover in the next coming years. Anything from lightly colored hoppy beers to heavy imperial stouts. Anything you want to try, there's probably a beer that's just right for you. And if I can give you a small tip, try going to the center of town and visiting one of the craft beer cafes there. I know off the top of my head that there's at least 3, and that one of them has beers for half of the price on Sundays. Just saying, it's a good place to hang out with friends and to find out which beer is actually right for you. Okay, so let's take a look at the number of beer breweries in the Netherlands. This chart here only goes to 2016, but you can already see that there's been an explosive growth in the number of beer breweries. And right now, in 2020, there's 680 independent breweries in the Netherlands. So this growth in the beer market has actually been insane. Now, also let's take a look at how normal breweries function. Okay, because normal breweries, they work with huge quantities of beer, huge quantities of the same kind of beer, right? So, for example, Pilsner breweries, they will have huge kettles in which they brew like 5,000 liters of Pilsner at once. And also smaller craft beer breweries, they will still have kettles in which they brew 500 liters of the same kind of IPA, for example, at once. Now, all of these beers then get sold and transferred to middlemen like supermarkets or restaurant suppliers before they get sent to consumers. Of course, there's a lot of competition in this market with 680 independent breweries, and so they have to do a lot of marketing in order to counteract that. This means that there's a lot of competition, and that is a very, very hard market to break into. So, what is Hops and Grains then? Hops and Grains is a student-run beer brewery. It was founded on the 25th of August 2017. Coincidentally, that's exactly 3 years ago. And the brewery is located in the heart of the Bastille building. You wouldn't know it from right now, but we are in an old kitchen in the Bastille. It used to be the center of the cafeteria. So you'd come here in order to get your lunch or your dinner. And that's been moved to another building, and so this kitchen was free for us to use. We are often invited to entrepreneurial events and pitches. And for example, we were invited to the Economics and Business Faculty Association of the University of Groningen. Each year they have a huge event where over 600 people come, and they have tons of pitches and startups kind of battle it out to see who has the best business idea. And we were invited there, and we actually got second place there that year. And so I'm going to give you the pitch that I gave there in order to give you an idea what Hops and Grains actually does. So, what is the idea of a pitch? You give a strong impression of your company in ideally 2 minutes or less. It's supposed to make people enthusiastic, and as I said, this was used during the EBF conference in October 2019. So, the craft beer market is growing. It's huge. The Dutch love all kinds of craft beer, and especially the Dutch love all kinds of beer, and especially craft beer has been a huge growing market in the last few decades. But raise your hands if you've ever brewed your own beer. Silly question because you're all at home. I cannot see you raise your hands, and so I see 0 hands that have been raised. That's not a lot of hands. Oh, I see 1 hand there. That's not a lot of hands, and that's because brewing your own beer is actually very difficult. It takes a lot of knowledge. It takes a lot of effort to brew your own beer. However, I do believe that brewing your own beer there's nothing quite as satisfying as taking the first sip of a beer that has your own name on it. So, with that idea in mind, we started our own beer brewery with a radically different business model. In our brewery, the customer is the boss of their own beer. You can create your own recipe online and place orders in small batches of only 1 crate or more. We then brew that beer for you and deliver it to your door once it's done. Out of 680 breweries in the Netherlands, none are doing what we do. On our website, we already offer 35 different ingredients that can easily be combined into any kind of beer that you like. Of course, a custom beer comes with a custom label, which you can decorate with a design of your own. Prices start at only €4 per bottle, and they will get cheaper if you buy more. The possibilities of our product really are endless. Do you want a special smooth ale to celebrate a Sicilian wedding, or a manly beer to show off your house, or your board, or your gear club maybe? Maybe you want to offer a business gift to one of your customers, or you want to celebrate the start of the weekend with your colleagues. It doesn't really matter, because if you place your orders, we start brewing. So, we have a lot of growing to do, but the foundation is here, and you can already start ordering your beer right now on www.hopsandgrains.nl. To sum up, Hops and Grains is an online beer brewery that turns the world of beer upside down by putting you in charge of your own beer and delivering anywhere in the Netherlands. Hops and Grains, our craft, your beer. And so, applause, of course. That was the pitch, and I hope one of you timed it, because that should have been within 2 minutes. Well, that's just one part of entrepreneurship, talking about an idea that you have and conveying it to an audience. And they asked me to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship as well at the university, so that's what I'm going to do. Who of you knows what the definition of entrepreneurship is? Again, I see 0 hands, guys. Jesus. I looked it up on Wikipedia. The act of being an entrepreneur is being the owner or manager of a business enterprise who, by risk and initiative, attempts to make profits. And this is, a relatively good description, but it's a bit incomplete. Not all entrepreneurial behavior is centered around making profits. For example, student organizations or charities or local sports club have a ton of entrepreneurship going on, but they're not really centered around making profits. So let's define what we call value. Because entrepreneurial behavior doesn't center on making profits, so instead of to make profit, we say to create value. Okay? Value can often be expressed in terms of pure money, of course. Like an apple, the value of an apple is, I don't know, what does an apple cost? 10 euros? Yes. But not always. Take, for example, a walk in the park. It's absolutely free. Walking in the park comes at no cost to you. But does that mean that it doesn't have any value? Or, for example, a charitable organization handing out money in a region struck by handing out food in a region struck by famine. It doesn't make profits, but it does help a lot of people, and there's certainly value in that. So, although the objective of a charitable organization isn't to make profits, it still adds a lot of value. And also there's a lot of entrepreneurship going on, for example, by improving supply lines, or by cooperating with local organizations, or just generally saving more lives. So what is entrepreneurship? Let's rewrite the definition. Entrepreneurship is the process by which individuals pursue opportunity without regard to the resources that they currently control. Now, this is a very broad description, of course, but it is accurate, because the core of any business or organization is the way that they create value. Okay, the zero sum of their activities must always be positive, and it must always have a source of revenue to pay for operations. So how do we spot an entrepreneurial opportunity? Well, let's take us back to basic economics, supply and demand. It lies at the core of entrepreneurship. You have to spot a gap in demand and a possible supply. If the market demands a certain good or a certain service at a certain cost, and you know of a way of providing that good or service at that cost with a profit margin for yourself, well, hey presto, that's an entrepreneurial opportunity. And that may be a feasible business idea. So, how do you act on such an opportunity? In other words, an entrepreneur, he acts on an opportunity in the market. And they act on that opportunity by investing their personal time, their resources, their money, their time, their resources, or their influence. And they do that to build up or expand a business or organization. So, to conclude, entrepreneurship can take place in small one-man companies or international organization. It can take place in new and old companies. It can take in charities and in for-profits, and it can obviously take place in people of all ages. Anyone can be an entrepreneur. So then, if that's what entrepreneurship is, what is a startup? Well, another definition right here. A startup is a young company under 5 years old that was founded to take advantage of new innovation or to make use of a disruptive business model. Now, all startups have a desire to grow quickly, and that's just what they do. Now, there's a difference between the two types of startups. Some startups have new innovation, and this may be any kind of invention, basically. If you have a new engine that you could put in a car, for example, that can be an innovation that drives a startup. You can have a new microchip, you can have a new type of boat. I don't know. Anything like that you can create a new company around, you can create a startup around. But there's also other companies that have a disruptive business model. They don't really invent anything new, but they use existing resources smartly, with smart management, in order to extract extra value that our competitors cannot. For example, Airbnb. Airbnb is an awesome example of a disruptive business model because they disrupt the hotel market. They haven't actually invented the idea of renting out apartments, but they are making use of it by smart management, and they're putting a real strain on the hotel industry. So, not all entrepreneurs have startups. Let's take a look at a local baker, for example. They are an entrepreneur, but they have an existing business model. They have existing products. They have an existing customer base that they use. The founding of a new bakery is relatively low risk, and they also have very little opportunities for growth. So since they don't have a new innovation and they don't have a disruptive business model, they are not founding a startup, but they are definitely entrepreneurs. Now, when we think of entrepreneurs, we mainly think of guys like these, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos. And they are most certainly some of the most successful entrepreneurs and successful startup leaders that all of us know. But it may surprise you. It doesn't take, there are excellent examples of successful startups, but you don't need to be successful to be a startup owner. And I'm a living example of that. It may come as a surprise, but the majority of startups actually fail to grow significantly. Or they are disbanded after only a few years. In the Netherlands, 200 startups are started every year, and after 5 years, only 20 of them are actually successful. 50% has gone broke, 40% are stuck making less money than they intended. Now, entrepreneurs that failed at a business have a higher chance of success the next time that they found a business. So my professional advice to all of you is to found a shitty startup first before you start on your real idea, because statistically speaking, the chance that you actually make it happen with the new idea is then bigger. Good. Now, back to Hops and Grains. What is Hops and Grains? Well, Hops and Grains is a student-run beer startup. But, of course, breweries already exist. And it's not like we have invented a new kind of kettle or something. So why do we call ourselves a startup? Well, the answer is we're disruptive. And Gols is really going to find it out any day now. So, first things first, what does Hops and Grains actually do? Well, of course, we started as a project group in February 2017 during the Product Design to Online Business module, which every one of you that's doing IAM, you're also going to do that module. Now, the assignment that you get in that module is to think of a new company that sells a customizable product online. Now, we kind of started with beer as a joke, right? My project group asked me, Jorik, do you have an idea for the project? And I said, hey, well, why don't we do it about beer? And that idea stuck. It wasn't a bad idea. But it got completely out of hand. And 6 months later, we already registered the idea at the local Chamber of Commerce. So, what is our product? Well, our product is pretty simple. It's fully customizable craft beer in small batches of 1 to 3 crates. That means that you have full control over all of the ingredients that go into the beer. And our customers can mix their own beers online in our online recipe mixer, which you can see right here. So for example, you can select different kinds of malts to put into the beer. For example, grain flakes or chocolate malts, etc. You also have a large selection of hops and different herbs, for example, to put into the beer. And all of that is going to combine into a recipe like this, for example. This recipe right here is 6.6% in alcohol. It's kind of sweet. It's got a nice mouthfeel, etc. And our website predicts what your beer is going to taste like before you order it. And so that's what we offer our customers. Now let's take a look back at, bit of a weird glitch there, but let's take a look at what actually happens in normal breweries. Again, a bit of a throwback. This is the normal business model for breweries. One brewer, one big kettle, a big supply chain, and the customers don't really have any input on what actually gets brewed each and every time. Now, for our brewery, you don't want one big kettle of like 200 liters to brew a single batch of beer for the customers. You don't want to own a big kettle. You want many different small kettles. And so this is what our business looks like. You'll have different customers that actually order their beers online, send a recipe to the brewer brews it, the beer is then sent back to the customers. So this is a basic idea. Build a web shop where people can customize the beers, brew those beers efficiently, and deliver them to the customers. Good, that's the idea. But where do you go from there? Well, it's time to talk a bit about the valley of death. Startups have very little income. And during the pilot phase, which is described here, many startups go bankrupt before they actually start making enough money. So from the moment that you select an idea that you wish to turn into a business, the clock starts ticking. And from the moment that you start preparing for an eventual launch, you need to invest money. Okay, you need to spend money to make money eventually. In our case, for example, we need to buy ingredients. We need to rent this brewery. We need to buy kettles. We need to pay for our supplies, etc., etc., etc. All of that costs money. If there's not enough money going in, you're going to have a real hard time making it as a company. For that, you need outside support. And luckily, the university is very keen on supplying companies with that support. The university, for example, has cheap space for student-run startups to have their own office. They help with legal issues like patenting and registering trademarks. They also provide free courses about startup financing. You can get direct help from business coaching if you have your own company. It will also supply you with some contacts with local companies if they are relevant. And since early 2020, before Corona actually happened, they also founded the Incubase right here in the Bastille, a stone throw away from here, which is kind of like an office park where you can rent your own space as a company to sit and work on your ideas. We actually also sold them some beer. This is the label Big Things Start Beer. It's a very terrible pun on their own slogan. But yeah, also each year the university organizes the Entrepreneurial Challenge. And we actually participated in the very first Entrepreneurial Challenge in 2017. The university organizes that, and it has different categories for student startups, and it has a nice monetary reward for the winners. And that is perfect, of course, as starting capital. Now, this is us 3 years ago, round and about, at the UT Challenge. We finished our project with a high grade, and so we enrolled in the first edition of the University of Twente Entrepreneurial Challenge. Now, having these challengers or business competitions is very important for young entrepreneurs, as that is where you learn to pitch your product to a wide audience. Now, we made it into the finals with our 2-minute pitch, and we won 2 prizes. The Audience Award for 2,000 euros, and the main prize in the ideation category for 4,000 euros. Now, needless to say, this was awesome. Okay, getting the feeling that people are really interested in your idea and want you to continue it serves as a good source of inspiration and motivation. So we used the prize money to buy our first brewing kettles, our first equipment, which we set up in my old student house. So we brewed our first beers in, well, pretty much a disgusting student kitchen. Some of them were very tasty, some not so much, but we did learn a lot about beer brewing. We also soon realized that we needed a better production facility because the space there was very limited and, as I said, hygienic standards were very questionable. So we started looking for other options, and that's why we approached the University of Twente in help for finding a new location. That location is, well, where we're filming right now. So pretty much 2 years ago, the brewery was an abandoned, disused kitchen, and now with a lot of help from the university and the student union, we turned it into a suitable testing location, into a student testing ground for our business idea. So local business owners have also sponsored us with some fancy stainless steel tabletops, which were stored in the forest, which is a great help. So we did need to clean it. So all necessary permits are now in place, and we have been operational for about 1.5 years now. Last February was actually our most productive month yet. So before Corona hit, we were doing very well. These are some more pictures of the progress. So this is the design of the brewery. This is the state in which we found it. So the university helped us a lot with kind of working on the aesthetics and how it all looks. This is pretty much how it looks now. It looks better now, actually. We built, well, this thing, which I'm standing behind. And so this is the current state of the brewery, basically. Now, in that time, we also did a lot of academic cooperation. So, for example, one IEM bachelor assignment got completed at Hops and Grains, my own, actually. We also served as a case study for multiple Saxion student assignments. And so let's talk about my own project, my own thesis, what I did. I wanted to see how far we could actually push this idea. And for that, I wanted to make a simulation. So what I did was I first needed to collect the working times of the different steps in the progress. So what I did was I borrowed a camera and I quite simply filmed myself brewing a whole variety of beers so that we could get some standard times. Now this led to some very interesting schedules, and this is where I made a simulation model of the entire brewery, which you can see here. And it looks very complicated, and it was actually way more complicated than it needed to be in retrospect. But I got a 9 for the project, so that's very awesome. So let's talk about the situation right now, because Hops and Grains has been operational for roughly 1.5 years in this brewery, and we have had over 50 paying customers, including professors and students and alumni, and of course local businesses. February 2020 was also our busiest month so far, but like many other businesses, we've been pretty heavily hit by Corona. Over 150 beers never got picked up due to the quarantine, and because they were stored in this hot brewery all summer, some of them have really started to form a foaming problem. So once you open the bottle, basically foam just shoots out everywhere, and we cannot sell them normally. Anyway, this year we're hoping to start fresh and attract some new staff also. Yes, so what are academic opportunities for students? Well, as I said, we have had some assignments here from both the university and the Saxion, and we also have multiple cases for IEM, IBA, BIT/IT, and industrial design engineering students laying around. So if you know someone that needs an assignment, why not send them to us? Other opportunities for students are, if you are interested in beer brewing or in graphic design, and you want to learn more on these subjects, let us know. We can always use extra help. And a final announcement before we move on to the question round. If you know what we should do with 150 exploding beers, also let us know. Well, we will auction off a few six-packs of very nice triple beers for the best awards, for the best answers. And so this is basically the end of my presentation. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. And are there any questions? Thank you.
Why did you Did you always wanted to start and start it? Or is it something that just came up in what you said?
I did. What? Oh, the question I just got was, did I always want to start a startup, or is it something that just came up? And the answer is, well, I always thought of starting my own business, but I never really thought about what that business would be then. And this was by far the best idea that we had so far. And so I had the opportunity to turn it into a business, and so we did. Yeah, would I do it again? Absolutely. Any more questions?
The chat's kind of silent.
So, is this now your full-time job, or do you still study next to it?
Is this my full-time job, or do I still study next to it? No, I definitely still study next to this job. I think I use about 1 day every week on this job. And apart from that, I just follow my studies and try to get all my grades. It's definitely not a full-time occupation.
I saw you made a dashboard, but how do you know that when you add something like a bit more grains or a bit more hops that you get that and that result?
Okay, so how do we know that the beers that our dashboards say we produce are actually the beers that we get?
Yeah.
You never really know, right? It's more of it's an educated guess that we make. But if we use standard brewing times, standard brewing procedures, the beers that we get are extremely similar. Like you can't really tell the difference between the different beers. And so using different ingredients definitely has a big impact on the quality of the beers that you get, on the taste of the beers that you get. And we have enough experience with that we can quite easily create any recipe that we want by now. Yeah.
I've got a question from chat. Do you have any plans to grow in the future and go worldwide?
Yes, we did have plans. Oh, the question is, do we have plans to grow in the future and go worldwide? We do have plans to do that, only they're more like dreams right now. First, we really have to go national and make sure that the idea is successful in the Netherlands before we attempt to push it worldwide. The Netherlands is a very entrepreneurial country, and basically the idea is if we can't do it here, we can't really do it anywhere.
What is your favorite type of brewing? Pilsner or an IPA?
What's my favorite type of beer to brew? Well, favorite type of beer to drink, I would say I love IPAs, I really do. I also love good stout beers, chocolate beers. But my favorite type of beer to brew is not the IPA, because there's a lot of hops in the IPA, and it kind of tends to clog up the entire kettle. And that causes you to have to do a lot of cleaning afterwards. So my favorite type of beer to brew basically comes down to a simple blonde, because it's not very difficult.
All right.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if that's all the questions from the chat, thank you for your attention, and I'm going to pass it back to the crew.
Yes. Okay. Well, of course, this was the talk from Hops and Grains. If you want to order some beer or interested in what they do, go to their website www.hopsandgrains.com and .nl. I'm sorry. Furthermore, with the kick-in program, we will continue this afternoon with an online game that you can participate in. You have to download an app. Ask your group activist for further help if you need some. And we hope to see you in the afternoon and the evening for the cooking show and the pub quiz. Thank you. Well.